what we're seeing is an effort to sort of herd the world towards what I would refer to as a neo-feudal model. So sort of going back to the same concentration of power that existed in the feudal era, or the dark ages of Europe, as it were, where you sort of have kings and you have sort of their enforcer class, and then you have a large serf underclass, and that the goal is to have basically those strata, the differences between them, enforced by technology. I think a key component of that is the efforts to control the flow of information, because in that era, right, the church dominated the flow of information and knowledge, and a lot of this was later, spread around and distributed to the serf class through the printing press and things like that, and now in modern iterations, the internet. And in order to bring things back to the neo-feudal era, the powers that be have to take complete control of the internet and the flow of information, and I think that's why we're seeing this increased push of censorization, and also to have, AI, generative AI that they produce end up producing the lion's share of the content online. Those two things, I think, go together in order to sort of manufacture reality so that we're more easily controlled and herded into these various systems that they're setting up that will maintain the vast majority of the populace in this serf underclass. And a lot of the big establishment thinkers on AI have pretty much talked openly about how that technology is being used to create sort of the upper class, the kings of the data barons, I guess, of the modern era, as opposed to the oil barons of previous eras, and how, the people that control the data that AI trains on and the people that program and maintain AI will be sort of in this upper class, and that AI will act upon the lower class, and the lower class over time will become cognitively incapable of understanding what AI is doing to them and how it's molding their opinions, and will become dependent on AI for everything, and will not really be able to function without it, or even make their own decisions and know their own preferences without it. And this was laid out by people like former Google CEO Eric Schmidt, Henry Kissinger, figures of that variety, openly talking about how this is where this technology is taking us.
Now, that's a fascinating summary, because this is sort of the edges of what I've been poking around at for a while here, which is that, once upon a time, you had to keep slaves, and that was a problem because they ran away and you're responsible for feeding them, their medical care. It was a problem. And then debt-based money came along, and surprise, people became their own slaves and slave masters. It was awesome. Very good. I'm wondering if we aren't seeing this transition now from old money. What's the new currency? It's information. If you can convince people of this narrative that you want them to be convinced of, and you can do that really powerfully, maybe subtly, maybe understanding neurochemistry, biology, pathways, wiring.
Yeah, so I think information is absolutely crucial to developing this neo-feudal model, precisely because if they can manipulate how humans perceive reality, they can fundamentally shape human behavior, and I think that's really the ultimate goal of this. And I think, during the COVID era, for example, that was a big boon for them in terms of the lockdowns and all of that, because people weren't interacting so much with the real world. They were instead interacting with the online world chiefly, which they can manipulate more effectively and essentially create realities that don't necessarily exist, and convince people that that's what's happening, and manipulate trust also. And as I'm sure you and your audience are aware, the big theme at the World Economic Forum for the past several years, including this year, has been rebuilding trust, and how to claim trust or reclaim trust among the people who have sort of, to varying extents, gotten wise to this essentially big power grab that's happening on the part of the elite right now. So narrative management is a big part of it. And the internet has been an issue for them in that regard, in terms of allowing whoever, anyone to publish information or read, and for people to read that information, hence the increased efforts to not just censor, but also have them through AI produce the lion's share of content. And I think it's been said now that ChatGPT and generative AI like it is going to be responsible for 90% of content online by 2025, which is, a year from now. So obviously those agendas are marching forward quite quickly, and I'm sure as the 2024 U.S. presidential election approaches, there will again be unprecedented censorship efforts that even the pro-free speech platform owned by Elon Musk, X, formerly Twitter, has embraced, as have, the more legacy social media platforms that don't take that, free speech posturing. Like Facebook and Google and what have you. So I think, we'll see a renewed push for that for the purpose of narrative control, because it's very likely that the 2024 election is going to be, contentious, because essentially the dynamics for that have been set up over the past two U.S. presidential elections. Essentially, the side that loses, regardless if it's Democrats or Republican, are going to contest the results. And there's obviously going to be, issues there, and the potential for either a January 6th equivalent among Democrats, or, a supposed repeat of what they hoped January 6th would turn into. Because in my opinion, that was an event that they really essentially a false flag to sort of push through the domestic terror narrative. And even with all those efforts there, it didn't really stick, because, there was not really a very small death count there. And despite the comparisons to try and link January 6th in the public mind to 9/11, after that event took place, it didn't end up sticking that way. But I think, over the course of this year, it's very possible that there will be some events and crises they will try to frame that way. And I think at the end of the day, the solution that will be offered to the public is going to be, a regulated internet, increased control over internet, the end of the ability to have anonymity or privacy online, which of course is going to tie into the broader efforts to eliminate financial privacy as well.